just a little bit. So we have to understand that this is a problem, and boys need protecting too. But oftentimes the signs are unrecognized. So for the next few minutes, I want to talk about the signs of, are your boys being sexually abused, molested, or manipulated? So moms, dads, the first thing, some of the things that I don't want to say obvious, but they should be obvious, is any signs of physical trauma, bruises, um, bruises in the private area, when you're doing their laundry, anything noticeable, blood on the sheets, blood in the underwear, that sort of thing. So those things, my hope is those things will be obvious, right? So we have to understand this, that when we talk about things are being unrecognized, do we know the signs? So some of those physical signs we already talked about, but here's some things that might not go, I'll say it this way, might go unnoticed or might be categorized as something else. One of the things is when we talk about the behavioral signs of child sexual abuse is age regression. And I'll give one or two examples. One of the ways of seeing this is a kid who's been successfully toilet trained, all of a sudden starts wetting himself and wetting the bed again after he's been toilet trained. Are they becoming clingy? All of a sudden, little man is independent, but now all of a sudden he wants to be under mom or dad. So he becomes more clingy, more resistant to separation, doesn't want to see his parents go. So those are some initial signs when we talk about age regression. Another way to recognize it is adult-like behavior, mimicking sexual behavior. When they have toys, are they pretending, or the play that they're doing with toys is more sexualized? Are they writing or drawing about sexualized content? Are they playing games with other children and becoming more sexualized? Here's another thing. When we talk about recognizing this, it's bath time, it's time to put on their pajamas and so forth, but now all of a sudden they're hesitant or they're resistant to you removing their clothes during bath time, diaper time, and that sort of thing. All of a sudden you see fidgety. They're having a nervous reaction. Also, nightmares, bad dreams, problem sleeping. All of a sudden they're talking about secrets or refusing to share secrets, or someone told them a secret. Here's a big one, especially for older kids. All of a sudden they have money, toys, candies, and things like that, without, obviously you didn't give it to them. So there's a story of this kid who was he's about 8 years old, right? So 8 years old, very little friends, latchkey kid, and would go places, go to the store, maybe have a few dollars in his pocket, go to the store or whatnot. Here's what happened. Perpetrators can point out vulnerable kids pretty easily. So this older man befriended this 8-year-old kid. started buying them things, promising them things. And because this kid was vulnerable, parents at home doing their own thing, not many friends, this older man who had means, what I mean by means, had money, began to groom this kid, and then not only began to sexually assault this kid, but prostituted him out. Long story short, not only did this kid begin to protect the perpetrator, his trauma allowed him to set other men up, make accusations to the point where not only was law enforcement involved, but make accusations against other men, putting them into predicaments, whether it was true or not. And when it became too much, this victim became a perpetrator, and one of his victims committed suicide, all because of a story that this person concocted. Now, here's why I tell this story. Vulnerable, approached by a perpetrator, family didn't pay attention. All of a sudden, this person had designer stuff, had money, had things that his own family couldn't buy. And it went on for years before the family even recognized it. The reality is that this boy needed protecting, but a lot of these signs were missed. So I know this is a tough topic, but I also want to get into some of the emotional signs that people see. You start to see some anxiety, fear. You see changes in eating habits, increased appetite, decreased appetite. You might even see the development of eating disorders, become more withdrawn from their friends. They begin to isolate themselves, and other physical problems. Some of the more dangerous risk is all the way to alcohol, drug abuse. The reality is sexual promiscuity. A lot of people who are sexually abused become promiscuous and oftentimes are even more vulnerable to run away and become trafficked. Would you believe that half the kids that are sexually a part of the sex trafficking, would you believe half are boys? So this is something that you could research and should research and start having conversation with your boys. And I mean school age, teaching them about boundaries, teaching them about physical boundaries, teaching them about what's appropriate, what's inappropriate. And here's the reality. Like I said earlier, 90% of sexual perpetrators are known by the victim. So the reality is you can't be too comfortable around anybody. Let alone, here's the funny thing. Families know who they should not leave their kids around. So I can go on and with the list of all the problems that it can create. But before I get out of here, I want to talk about some of the things you should do. Always talk to your child. Here's the thing. I know growing up in my family and in the black church or whatever, sometimes having sexual conversation is taboo. But we have to start educating and making it and opening up the lines of communication in order for kids to feel comfortable to talk about this kind of things. And I'm not talking anything inappropriate. I am talking about things that are age appropriate, but we have to start teaching about these things in our bodies and girls' bodies and boys' bodies and those things so kids have the information. Now, here's the thing. When you are having conversations with your child, don't pressure them. Let them communicate. Be clear in what you're asking. The key point is to listen and listen without judgment. The moment that you lose control and begin to listen with judgment, they're going to shut down and most likely they won't share much more with you. We always have to reserve judgment, but also we also make sure that we have to come across that we are not blaming them and letting them know that it is not their fault.